So the writing was on the wall, and the wall has now spoken. We tried trading him away multiple times. Nobody wanted him. So now it's going to happen. Germaine Pratt will likely be released sometime soon. My guess is he's going to be released post-June 1st so we can save the most money. If we released him right now, we would only save around $3.4 million. So if we release him post-June 1st, we save more money. So we're going to do it most likely post-June 1st, which means he'll have one more month left with the Bengals, or we can just designate him to a post-June 1st cut, and then that's it. And yeah, listen, at the end of the day, it sucks, but he requested a trade. He wanted out of Cincinnati. My guess is they probably told him to restructure a contract like Zach Moss did. He probably declined last year on his contract. It is what it is. And, now he's going to be released. And listen, at the end of the day, we drafted 2 linebackers. We picked up Owen Burks. We also picked up the Patriots linebacker. So the writing was on the wall. Okay, the writing was on the wall, but it's not easy. Germaine Pratt had that interception versus the Raiders in the playoffs. They gave us our first playoff win in a very long time. And I think overall wise, we all owe a lot to Germaine Pratt. Again, just because he's going to leave us as a Bengals doesn't mean we don't love him as a man, as a person, a human being. I hope he is successful wherever he goes. Obviously, he's going to be 29 years old, but he's made a lot of great memories here in Cincinnati, and it does suck, but if you look at him last year in his play, you just really can't justify keeping him around. Great in tackling last year, but a lot of that was because he missed tackles and then would make up for it. He's not good in coverage. He's not fast enough to cover a majority of people, and, we need to fix this defense. And when you look at last year, you look at the fact that, as Joseph Asai said, before the season even started, they gave up on the season. The defense did. They didn't buy in till the last 5 weeks of the season. That's a problem. That's an issue. And that is an issue with your captains. That's an issue with your leadership. And that's an issue with, the top players on your defense. And at the end of the day, Germaine is one of those top players as well. Again, I think there's multiple reasons why this situation happened the way it did. Now, is there a path where if we cut him, potentially he hits free agency, nobody wants him, and he comes back for a cheaper deal? Potentially. There's always a chance that could happen. But I think right now, they also probably want to get more play time for the linebackers we do have. There hasn't been, in the last couple years, a time period where I could say we have a lot of good linebacker depth. Our linebackers have been very thin when it comes to linebacking room for the last couple years. We are now in a spot where we can arguably say we have one of the best linebacker depth we have had in a long time, which does make this decision a lot easier and also makes the decision happen a lot faster. If we didn't draft 2 linebackers in this last draft, I don't think this decision probably happens this quickly. I think that they would most likely ponder this idea and kind of move on, and think about it down the line. Now, there is a scenario where some people are going to be upset because they're going to say, well, we did him dirty. Kind of like the Joe Mixon situation. When we were going to cut Joe Mixon, in quotes, because we didn't in the end, we were going to cut him after a couple weeks of free agency, which is very dirty to do to a player because when you cut him at the very beginning of free agency, you give him the full amped opportunity to meet with as many teams as he wants and get paid as much as he wants. And, the money hasn't been dished out to other players yet. When you cut a player a couple weeks into free agency, the pool has already, dried up and you're really just going for the scraps at this point. And it hurts the player when it comes to his future career. We ended up trading Joe Mixon in the end, so we didn't do that to him. We were going to, but we didn't in the end, so that is what it is. This situation, I think what we try to do was trade Germaine Pratt as many times as possible. We tried to find a trade partner. We probably tried to do multiple times during the draft, would be my guess. And simply it didn't work out. And we had him as an insurance plan where, hey, if we don't draft a linebacker, if it doesn't fall to us that way, we always have Germaine Pratt as a backup plan. But again, you got to keep in mind, the guy wants off the team. So if the guy wants off the team, there's only so much you can do. Because at the end of the day, he's going to piss a fit if he's on this team and he doesn't want to play for this team. So, again, there's a million different things. Yes, we could have cut him at the very beginning of free agency, gave him the full max opportunity. But again, I think we tried to trade him. We held him for the draft, and we saw how the draft fell to us. And the draft fell very well in the linebacking department. So I still wish we would trade him and maybe get something for him. But if he does go ahead and leave us, and he signs somewhere, and he ends up being a pretty decent player for somebody else, which again, I do hope and wish him best of luck, we will get a compensatory pick for him, so it will work out in the end for us. Again, this is never an easy situation, I feel like, for any player, especially a player like Germaine, who has done so much for Cincinnati when it comes to big plays and moments that, look, listen, at the end of the day, him leaving doesn't change the moment. It is still a beautiful moment. It's still a beautiful memory, but sometimes you got to go on and, live your best career somewhere else. And I really think this is also because we told him to restructure his contract. Like, when Zach Moss just got his contract restructured completely, and now we have Germaine Pratt, right before that requesting a trade, it's like, I think there is probably a scenario where the Cincinnati Bengals want to restructure most players that they want to cut or trade, in quotes. They probably want to restructure the contract first, give the player a chance to try to stay with the team, but they're going to have to take a lot less money. And that's kind of where we're at. So this also gives us roughly around 30 some odd million after it's all said and done. So we're going to be able to have a good amount of cap space if we decide to, one, potentially sign Trey Hendrickson to an extension and give Trey his money, or two, potentially go out there in free agency, pick up another guard or two, maybe pick up a safety, really look toward other options in free agency. So again, like I said, it is what it is. Will the Colts pick him up? Maybe. But based on what I understand, the Colts didn't even want to trade for him, so I don't know if they're going to want to pick him up. And now that we're post-draft time period, this is when we'll see how it works out. But hey, listen, it worked out for Alex Kappa, right? Kappa got cut, and then Kappa got signed right away. So, we'll see. Let me know down below your thoughts, opinions. See you guys next one. Peace.